The season 5 finale of Rick and Morty ended Evil Morty's storyline and explored Rick's past, as well as his relationship with Morty. The two-part finale saw Rick and Morty separate until the final moments with a tongue-in-cheek gag that suggests the duo has finally moved past their problems and everything's back to normal. But we have to ask ourselves, is it really this simple? If the pair's relationship has been brought to a new, healthy domain, what does that mean for the show's dynamic going forward? These questions are especially pertinent given that the text of the episode seems to suggest that Rick and Morty can't change so easily, if they can change at all. So today on Tears and Rain, we're going to look at the season 5 finale of Rick and Morty and what Evil Morty's victory means for the titular duo. Before we get into the video though, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. The finale kicks off strong with an argument between Rick and Morty that leads to the former firing the latter. This argument has been a long time coming. Rick's and Morty's relationship has always been toxic, and this season put a special strain on them. Rick replaces his grandson with 2 crows, while Morty builds a bond with Nick, a man in his palm with a connection to Rick. Neither relationship advances as expected. Morty thinks he's found someone like him, an average human who had their life turned upside down by Rick. But Nick proves to be a bit of a controlling, murderous prick. In the end, Morty kills Nick to get away from him. In contrast, Rick's relationship with his crows becomes far more meaningful than he could have ever imagined. He originally thought of the crows as a cheap way to get back at Morty, but he ended up developing a deep, empathetic bond with them. Perhaps one of the healthiest bonds we've seen Rick make in the entire run of the show. This bond was so deep and revolutionary that Rick ended up breaking up with Morty in the long term because he realized how abusive their relationship had become.
I'm a bad partner because I never made you a true partner. The crows made me see that.
This episode sets our 2 main characters on separate paths. It begs the question, what is Rick without Morty, and vice versa? From this episode, it seems Rick is actually a bit more without Morty. Morty tried to separate from the toxic relationship, but ended up coming back to Rick in the end. But Rick's the one who comes to understand what a true, healthy relationship can be, and he understands that they need to separate. He even relinquishes his portal gun to Morty. This is a big deal. Rick's portal gun has long been a symbol of his genius and superiority, but also of his indifference. As long as Rick is holding the portal gun, he doesn't need to care. Nothing matters when he can just pop into an alternate dimension where he didn't turn the Earth's population into Cronenberg monsters. As long as he has the gun, he can keep himself emotionally distant from other people. But by giving up the portal gun, Rick opens himself up to a new future and new possibilities. Rick's escapades with his crows takes a sharp turn when he learns they were using him as a rebound from a relationship with an especially sensual scarecrow. They end up reforging this relationship and throwing Rick to the curb. He returns home to the Smiths, encouraged by Morty using an aging serum to emotionally blackmail Rick. The pair venture off to the citadel of Rick's to resolve this fiasco and end up entangled in Evil Morty's plots once more. Though Rick and Morty are unable to do much more than watch from the sidelines as Evil Morty's plan advances, destroying the citadel and breaking the central finite curve. It's a fitting end to Evil Morty's story. Assuming he never comes back, but that's a matter for a different video. Instead, we should consider what this episode says about the relationship between Rick's and Morty's on the grand scheme, and what that means for the pair that we follow. Can Rick C-137 and Morty C-137 really change? The duo struggles with that question in this episode. When Rick comes home, Beth tells Morty that he has to tell Rick that he's deserving of respect. Morty refuses to do this. It gets played off as a gag, with Rick assuring Beth that Morty's codependence is just because he's in his 40s and presumably alone. but it hints that the pair might not want to change, or might not be able to. Of course, once we shave off an extra 26 years from Morty's life, he does start to challenge Rick and try to change the status quo of their relationship.
It's not a new leaf until you tell me everything.
And because Morty is demanding this, and Rick is at least trying to make some effort to change, we get all of Rick's crybaby backstory. Every detail about how he lost his family, how he lost his purpose, and how he helped found the Citadel. Perhaps the biggest surprise of the episode, however, comes from Evil Morty explaining the central finite curve. Effectively, the Ricks separated the multiverses, sectioning away all of the universes where they were the smartest man in the universe, away from all the possibilities where they weren't. It creates an endless cycle because Ricks need Mortys. Even though they won't admit it, they need them desperately, and the Citadel becomes a Morty market. It's an endless cycle where Mortys are bred to fuel the Citadel and support the Ricks, who have never really cared for them. The very idea of the curve proposes that Rick and Morty's relationship cannot change. They live inside a system designed for Ricks to abuse Mortys for their own gain while never taking responsibility for their actions.
Morty, I'm not responsible for every f***ed up Rick out there. They literally all say that.
Indeed, the scope of the curve's power is so great that Evil Morty sees one path to freedom, breaking away entirely. He sees no way for a Morty to live inside the curve without being abused. By his own admission, this is what makes him evil. Not conforming to the system and trying to find an existence that is independent from Rick. A life where he's just Morty instead of Rick's and. Evil Morty's existence suggests that there's no way to heal the rift between Rick and Morty. As long as the two are together, they're locked in this relationship unless they walk away. In the end, Evil Morty's victory comes from walking away. When our Morty gets that choice, however, to join Evil Morty and go beyond the curve and find an existence without Rick, or at least without Rick being such a dominating presence, he refuses. He chooses to stay with Rick C-137 even after Rick told him that he has no plan and going with Evil Morty is his best chance at surviving. For all intents and purposes, it feels like these episodes are trying to tell us that Rick and Morty can't change. They might separate for a while, but in the end, they'll come back. Even when faced with the horrors of the relationship, even when faced with the choice to walk away, they stay. And then we'll also see that Rick will try to change, but in reality, he never will. We see this at the very end when Morty challenges Rick and asks him if he came back because he actually cares about Morty, or if the crows dumped him. Their universe, or multiverse, is built around their dysfunction. Except, Evil Morty's plans seem to have changed the fundamental rules of Rick and Morty's universe. In the final shots of his story, we see a diagram of the central finite curve explode. He also committed mass genocide of Ricks to power his escape. It's implied that Rick C-137 is one of, if not the only Rick, to escape from the Citadel alive. Although he does do so with a healthy helping of Morty's. Further, Rick's portal gun, the symbol of his genius and indifference, is empty. The Citadel is supposedly the source of Rick's portal fluid, which is now drained and gone. In theory, this could force Rick and Morty to change. After all, the system that forced their dysfunction has broken, but it really comes down to these two. It's almost cyclical. How many times have we seen Beth insist on rules between Rick and Morty that simply get forgotten in later episodes? It's possible that Season 6 won't change anything once, if Rick gets more portal fluid. Can Rick and Morty change? Yes, these two episodes have shown that the pair have the ability to change if they want, but they fall into old patterns so easily.
Rick, did you really leave the crows for me? Or did you come back because they dumped you? There you go, kid. Now you're Evil Morty too.